Hi everyone, thank you for joining today's webinar. My name is Anya Siddiqui, and joining us today again is Vivian Lee with our co-host Aziz and Lovelyn. So hi everyone at RBC. Oh, we can't hear you, you guys are muted.
Hi Sonia. Hi everyone.
All right, nice to have you guys on board. As you know, RBC hosts 2 webinars with us every month, so we're really excited about this one. They'll be going over the do's and don'ts in your job search. And before I move forward, I just want to make sure that everyone is properly connected. So please note that you are all on listen only mode, so we won't be able to hear you. But we will take your questions towards the end of the presentation. For that, please type them into the questions tab and we can take your questions there. And if you'd like to address them to one of the hosts, you can type their name in and then ask the question as well. For best results, please use a laptop or a desktop computer. And your feedback is always appreciated. So please do fill out the survey at the end of the webinar. All our webinars are always recorded. So if you'd like to receive a recording, you will receive it sometime today, later today, or you can check out our YouTube channel. It's got all of our RBC webinars uploaded. We have a special section for RBC videos and webinars, so you can check them out over there as well. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit about ACCES before we get started. We've been around for over 30 years helping job seekers such as yourselves. Just in the past year alone, we were able to serve over 34,000 job seekers. We work with over 2,200 employer connections with various different community partners, sponsors such as RBC. RBC helps sponsor a lot of our programs. We even have a joint working space with RBC in our Markham office. It's called the Newcomer branch. And maybe Vivian, you can talk quickly about that as well. And we've got over 30 tailored programs, which include our sector-specific bridging programs as well. And RBC is a big part of our FSC, our Financial Services Connections program. And we've got 7 locations in the GTA with our, which I think it was our 6th location, the Markham location, which is joint with RBC as well. And currently we are serving everyone online. So online services is huge right now. We might have 7 locations in the GTA, but we are using our location, which is online in the cloud. So if you'd like to get in touch with us, please reach out to us through our social media, to our website, or just call any of your closest locations, and we will be able to help you with your job search. So I'm just going to hand it over to Vivian here now.
Thanks, Sonia. Thanks. Hello, everyone. My name is Vivian. I think some of you might know me from the previous webinars. Today, I'm very, very excited to have 2 amazing guests joining me today, Aziz and Lovelyn. So before I introduce them, formally introduce them and have the chat about job search and career development, I'm going to just talk very briefly about RBC and what are some of the initiatives that we have supporting newcomers in both, your job journey as well as, launching a successful, start a success life in Canada. So Sonia, if you could pass on to the next slide. Next one, please. Okay, so this is about me. I'm an immigrant myself. I came to Canada 17 years ago, so life flies. So I, started my career and, in HR as a volunteer, and currently I lead RBC's inclusive recruitment team. So our mandate is externally, we go out and connect with different diverse communities, and we try to introduce and bring a talent from different diverse communities, especially those who are from marginalized community and have employment barriers, like persons with disabilities, Indigenous peoples of Canada, people from LGBT community, visible minority newcomers, and we connect with them and build a trust and invite them to join RBC. Internally, we partner with different recruitment teams as well as businesses and support their inclusive hiring initiatives. We provide different trainings and run different events. The goal is to really help the business build their diverse and inclusive workforce. So this role is really very, very rewarding for me. It allows me to give back to the newcomer community because, as an immigrant, I do understand the challenges that everybody's going through. I remember when I lost my first job, it was 2008. That was the financial crisis, right? And now we're going through the COVID situation, and definitely, really understand the challenges and even more challenges as a newcomer coming to this country and looking for jobs. So hopefully today's conversation is going to provide some insight in both your job searching journey and as you further on develop your career in the Canadian organizations. So Sonia, if you could pass to the next slide. As you can see, there are a lot of awards about RBC that we have got recognitions. What I want to focus on here is, behind all those awards and recognitions, especially we've been recognized for multiple years of Canada's Best Diversity Employer. Behind are our 80,000 employees. And among those 80,000 employees, around 35% of our workforce are visible minorities. By visible minorities, they, most likely they're either first generation or second generation immigrants. That means, our immigrant employees play a very, very important part to RBC's success and prosperity. So that's why we think newcomer inclusion and immigrant inclusion is so important to our current success and also, what we're trying to become in the future. So Sonia, if you could pass on to the next slide, just a little bit more about our inclusion and the diversity and how important it is to us. First, I want to highlight is we serve our client in over 200 languages. So hiring from the community to serve the community is one of our guiding hiring principles. When we say we can serve our clients in over 200 languages, guess who are our employees who provide those services? Those are all immigrants like yourselves. So never think that because RBC is Canada's #1 bank, is a big organization, you as an immigrant do not have a chance of getting hired here. We have some amazing examples today, but we hire a lot of immigrants every year. As I mentioned, 35% of workforce are visible minorities. Visible minority is a very employment equity term. It means that you're non-white by color, non-Caucasian by race. So I think a lot of the attendees today to the webinar belongs to visible minorities. The Canadian workforce representation is only 25%. So from the number that we have, 35% of the workforce, it shows that a huge commitment at the company's most senior level, as well as the whole company working together to make it happen. Once you joined, we also want to make sure that you have the sense of belongings and the opportunity to network within the company and build your careers here. So we have a lot of employee resources group. The other piece I want to focus and highlight is over 40% of our Canadian recruiters are visible minorities. And that is huge. And that's something for someone who works in HR that I'm very, very proud of. Why does that matter? Because when you have such a diverse recruiter base, it really helps us champion the newcomer and immigrant inclusion with our business. We help bring that kind of culture, acumen, and also the expertise and it really encourage the hiring managers and the business to, sometimes check their blind spots, address their unconscious bias, and really invite talented newcomers into the organization. Next slide, I'm going to just very briefly mention a few. Sonia, if you could please move to the next one. A few initiatives supporting newcomers. One is what Sonia just touched on, our newcomer meeting place. So RBC launched our newcomer meeting places around 2 years ago. And the sole purpose of this newcomer meeting place is not about, we're here to make our sales. The more clients come to us and open more accounts. It's really, we're aiming to provide that value-added service to any newcomers. You don't have to be RBC client. You can walk into our newcomer meeting place and ask any questions as a newcomer to support you settling down in Canada, as well as really make your journey of building a life here a little bit more easier. Sometimes it is about job search, so we offer a lot of webinars and workshops, events to help you with your job search. Sometimes it's about other topics that you're interested in, for example, healthcare, how do you file your taxes. So we have a lot of events. We have run so many different webinars on so many different topics. Definitely check that out if you're interested. Another initiative is called Arrive. Arrive is one of RBC's ventures. So they launched around, it was in 2019. So in the last 2 years, they have really built up their community really vastly. Arrive's whole purpose is to engage those immigrants who are already here and successfully find a job or launch their careers here, and connect them with the newcomers who just arrived and who are seeking for advice and assistance and support. Build that connection, build that community, so that we can allow those connection and a network happen. They have a lot of events as well. They also have their mentorship program and some online initiatives. So if you want to check out, you can just simply Google Arrive RBC, and you will be able to connect with them and see all the amazing initiatives that they run. Career Edge is one, I would say, one internship that we have been able to host internship program that we've been able to host within RBC for the last 20 years, over 20 years. RBC has been the largest host for this program for the last at least 5 years. Every year we bring in some talented individuals who are internationally trained professionals. And like I mentioned, it's an internship. So that means it's different. The pay would be different than when you are hired into RBC as a full-time, right? The length is usually between 2 to 12 months. What it help you have that valuable first, I would say, so-called Canadian work experience. Sometimes we do convert. In the past, our conversion rate have been around 40%. Really depends on your performance, whether the hiring team has the headcount to convert as well as the budget, right? So definitely check that out. And you can Google Career Edge. And in addition to RBC, there are a lot of amazing companies that really value diversity and inclusion and on their platform. So that's about Career Edge. The other piece I want to focus on that I think would help all the newcomers is the Triac Mentorship. So Triac Mentorship is run by a nonprofit organization. RBC has around 200 mentors, over 200 mentors each year participate in the program. Our mentors would be engaging their mentees for a 3 to 4 months months and help those newcomer mentees in their job search. It can be, help them with their resumes, with their interviews. It can also mean help them build that connection with the industry professionals. A very high percentage of the Triac mentees have successfully launched a job after they attend the mentorship. So definitely check that out. Google Triac, you'll be able to find out how you can apply for the mentorship. So those are the few initiatives I want to highlight. And now I'm very excited to start our conversation with ACCES and Loveland. So Sonia, if you could pass to the next slide. Oh, this is the last. Yeah. Okay. So, very excited because I've known ACCES for quite a few years, and I know that he's been a great mentor to a lot of newcomers, and he's also the former president of COFPE and now the board member of COFPE. So I have invited ACCES to do quite a few webinars. And we chat a lot about the culture barriers, both from job searching perspective as well as development and career advancement perspective. So welcome, ACCES. If you could, is there anything else that you want to introduce yourself that I missed?
Sure. Thank you everyone for attending, and thanks Vivian and Sonia for the invitation. Yeah, my name is ACCES. Currently a director within Capital Markets Finance, working on cost transformation initiatives for the platform. Been at the bank for quite some time. I stepped out to go on a learning experience at Ernst & Young in the consulting space, and recently returned this year back into the bank. And as Vivian mentioned, I was also the former president of the Canadian Association of Urban Financial Professionals. And it's a group where we focus on enhancing and promoting advancements of Black professionals on Bay Street to enhance the economy of Canada. And yeah, looking forward to having a good conversation today.
Thank you, ACCES. And my other guest is Loveland Toyu. So when I first, reason I with Loveland is she was featured in our internal RBC net. And when I saw her picture, I was like, this picture looks very familiar, but it didn't ring a bell. When did I see her? So I connected with her, and Loveland told me that she attended one of our newcomer events in 2019, and we started the chat and really got to know her journey. She was hired into RBC Capital Markets in a VP position in 2019, and she's a newcomer to Canada herself. So Loveland, I will pass to you to introduce a little bit about yourself as a newcomer to Canada.
Yeah, thanks Vivian, and thanks Sonia for inviting me here. I'm really happy to be here. I was telling Vivian that it's almost like full circle for me, because like she said, about April last year, yes, that's when I first met Vivian at a newcomer event. It was in person before COVID, but that was when I first met Vivian, and I had the chance to actually get in contact with some colleagues now. They weren't colleagues then in capital market at RBC, and it's like full circle for me. So I'm really very happy to be here, and I'm very glad that people have been able to join us today. And I look forward to sharing a bit more about my journey. I'm not a skilled expert like Vivian. I'm just a newcomer like you guys. So I'm actually walking the walk that you're walking now. So it's great to connect.
Thank you, Loveland. So I will start with you then, because your newcomer journey is still fresh, right? So yeah. So you came here maybe 2 years ago, and what was the reason that you decided to move to Canada? And when you first arrived, what were some of the culture shocks that you experienced?
Okay, so basically I moved to Canada November 2018. I'll be clocking about 2 years in about 3 weeks. I will have a mini celebration. So I moved here then with my family. I have 3 sons, and I moved here with my husband as well. And I'm Nigerian, so I moved from Nigeria.
Right.
we wanted, I guess I would say, a life where we could have it all, for lack of a better, more eloquent way to say it. Just before I moved, I'd taken a break from my career. I just had a baby and some other family obligations. I was, as most women, a lot of women, and some men actually get to that point where you want to take a career break and you focus on your family. So I'd done that for like a year before I moved here. And so moving here, I saw Canada as a place where I could have it all, have time to give to my family, have fantastic flexibility around work and life. Work-life balance, there's that argument, doesn't really exist. I don't know. But what I do know exists is that here you can have that flexibility, from my own experience, that flexibility to manage the two. So it's skewed now and then, but then you're able to work something. And that was the allure for me coming to Canada, and my family as well, that we could have that flexibility. So, Vivian mentioned that asked about, culture shock when I came. So I would say learning the language. And I don't mean learning the language in terms like, I don't mean like literally learning the language, because, it's Canada, right? So we speak English mostly and maybe a bit of French. I would say learning the language in terms of things like non-verbal and verbal, skills around that. Like, and I would break it down into things like networking, into things like mentoring and mentorship, and finding a coach and finding a sponsor. I would break it down to things like soft skills, and I'll share my own personal experience with you. So I joined RBC last year through the Return to Bay Street program. It's an initiative of women in capital markets, and what they do is they try to find women who have taken a break from work and are trying to come back into the capital market space. And I had experience in Nigeria in front office kind of roles. I'd done some FX trading. I'd done some fixed income securities trading as well. I'd done some asset and liability management. And so it was a space that I was hoping to be able to get back to when I came to Canada. But everyone said to me, it's not possible, Loveline. How can you get into this place? Like, it's really tough for even people that are here to get in. So how do you plan to get in there? I took a step back, and luckily for me, I came across this program that I talked about, that I stumbled on. And I will tell you, and I will share the way I went about trying to get through some of those barriers that I think I experienced. I'll start with networking. Networking is something that it's not something that we do in Nigeria. I don't know, Ziz might agree or not, but it's not something that comes to us naturally. And if you're like me and you're an introverted extrovert, it can be a little bit more difficult as well. But I would say that is one language that it's a good skill to have to start to learn. And networking is reaching out to people in the field that you want to work with. Networking is reaching out to people that you come across that work in the industry that you want to work in, the job role that you want to work in. And there actually is, networking is also a way that actually kind of gets you into that hidden job market that you hear a lot about. You hear a lot about the hidden job market, and, they might be advertised roles actually, but what happens is that referrals go on in the background, right? So you'd apply like everyone else, but then if someone goes, oh, you know what, I met Loveline at an event last year or 2 months ago, and we had a good chat, and I think you should, have a chance to chat with her. Now, those are the kind of doors and those are the kind of barriers that networking helps you to break down. So it's not like you still won't have the interviews, you will, but it just gets you that closer to the door of being able to have a chat with the person who has the hiring decisions. So I will add, though, I'll add that for me personally, networking wasn't as easy. I mean, it was a new concept for me. So it's not like it's easy. And when I find that I get to that place, when I start to have like a mental fatigue, I take a break. And I advise everyone I meet, when you get to that point, because being a newcomer in this year, it's tough. It's tough for a lot of people, particularly if you're a newcomer coming in at this time. So there's a lot going on in your lives. There's that weight of, having to try to get a job, but everyone else seems to be looking for a job. So it can get tiring and it can get mentally exhausting. And I would advise, when you get to that point where you need to take a break, please take a break. Take a step back. Take a step back for a day, 2 days, however long you need. But you have to know that you have to get back on that horse, because networking, honestly, is the key. People hold the key to a lot of connections in Canada, so you need to get back on that horse. But take time away for your mental health when you have to take time away. Something else I'd like to just touch on really, really quickly is the place of mentorship and finding a coach. When I came to Canada, I met another immigrant like me who also worked in capital markets, but she'd been here a long time. And she was in the market that I wanted to get into. And I will tell you that I latched onto her. Like I latched onto her, right? And it's the funny thing is that, when you go on LinkedIn and you send all these messages to people, connection, not everyone might respond. And that is fine because people are going through different things in their lives. So you can't expect that everyone that you send a connection request to might respond. She didn't respond initially, like immediately. But by the time I went back and forth, and I kept on updating her with, I met her at an event, an in-person event, kept on updating her with, what I was doing, updates. At a point, I got the chance to speak with her. And she's someone that I would credit with being able to help me, position me, mindset-wise, how to carry myself at interviews, how to approach questions asked at interviews. She was super. So I would say you have to find mentors in your field. In fact, I actually had mentors for different things. I had a mentor that I'd ask, what should I wear to an interview? So I had a mentor for different parts of my life. So to say, I had a mentor for, like my children, where can they go when it's time for summer? Where can they play? I had a mentor for career, like, okay, when this question comes up, how do I position myself? How do I respond to this question? So find people that you can draw on their experiences to guide you and to guide yours. What that does also is that it also helps to kind of be able to see through and break down any of those barriers that you might, like Vivian said, not even know that those barriers are there. So I'll say networking, I'll say mentoring, find a sponsor. Finding a sponsor might be a bit tough when you're a newcomer, particularly because you're looking for a job. But in the long run, when you do get a job, keep that in mind that you do need a sponsor, someone that can be able to spend their social currency on you and say, yes, I've spoken to ACCES, I've had a chat with Loveland, I've worked with them for a bit. These are the things I know that they can do, and just someone that can put your name forward in a room where there are opportunities. So you would need that, but that will become a career development, I guess. I'm getting ahead of myself, you guys. I apologize. I apologize.
Yeah, I'm going to pause you there because, we're going to touch upon, I think you mentioned some great points, but you did mention in the job search some very, very important factors. One is networking, the other one is finding a mentor. And now I'm going to switch to ACCES because I remember, ACCES, you, in one of your posts, you said that you yourself is a huge introvert, but being an introvert and being the leader in a lot of the diversity and inclusion space, that takes a lot of, you stepping out of your comfort zone, right? And we also, in our past chats, you talked about the importance of working and how that is so different from a lot of cultures that immigrants come from. Can you share a little bit of insight about how you yourself break out of the shell and really step out of your comfort zone and develop a step of self-development? Also, from observing of the different immigrants and their journey, some insights about breaking culture barriers when they do job search.
Right. Yeah, no, for sure. Yes, I am an introvert by nature, but the thing though is that, being an introvert doesn't necessarily mean that you are always quiet all the time. And I think that's the confusion that most people think, that, oh yeah, I can't or shouldn't speak up, because I've got this more quiet side of things. And so, in terms of my own perspective and how I managed a lot of this stuff, I've been in Canada for 20 years now. And I was probably more fortunate in terms of coming here as a teenager. So a lot of things that I learned, I was able to learn them fairly quickly over time in a space that was less risky, i.e., in university, and or when I finished high school as well. And I got the opportunity to hone in on the areas of strength. With most people that are introverts or even people coming from other cultures into Canada, right? We tend to spend more time watching and learning, watching and observing, or coming from cultures where it is the default for us to be quote unquote seen and not heard,
Mm.
or don't ask elders questions or challenge your superiors. But as Loveland mentioned, right, you have to learn the language of the environment that you're in. And so I did a lot of that. And again, I had the safety of school to do that, because you're not, you're not in a situation where you have to take a decision that affects someone's life or someone's bank account, like we do here in banking. So that was my approach. And then, in terms of getting developing those leadership skills, that was through deliberate effort. And regardless of where you are in the spectrum of personalities, you have to make deliberate effort as a newcomer to grow certain particular skill sets, such as making the effort to network. Networking is a foreign concept to a lot of people coming into this country, and as Loveland mentioned, it was very new to myself as well. Even though I was here as a young person, right, in school, I still had to put myself out there. And the first few times that you do it, it will feel counter to your default nature, right? But the beauty of spaces like what we have here is that you don't have to say much, right? You can, again, watch and learn, right? Your objective should not be that, in your first networking session that you connect with every single person in the room. Sometimes the first time is really just to see what people are talking about, right? Just to see who's in the room. And then, over time, you build up that courage. And like I said, with deliberate action and practice, to start conversations and start connecting with people. So that's kind of how my own leadership perspective came about. And of course, it led to a variety of multiple doors opening, multiple career opportunities coming through. And I'll give a specific example around the power of networking and how that can get you to those. One thing that Loveland mentioned, those hidden roles, right? The stuff that doesn't get advertised. So when I left RBC the first time, I was looking to do something different, just to get a little bit more excitement in my career at the time. And I reached out to a partner that I had at Ernst & Young, who I had met a year and a half before, right? And I had kept in touch, just periodically over the past the year before that. And when the time came for me to do something different, I reached out to him and said, hey, I'm ready for a change. What's going on in your space that would be of interest? Here's what I'm what I'm interested in. And literally within a day of sending that email, he connected me with other partners in the firm within the specific area that I ended up getting into. And the recruitment process started 4 days later, right? And I went through, a series of interviews for a role that was not even posted. And that could only have happened because of that networking capability. So it does help, and things, of course, take time. As a newcomer, you're under, the pressure to settle in quickly, to start earning an income, because you may have come with with your entire family. So you're looking for ways to start providing. But the thing I would say is that you have to be patient, even more so now during these COVID times, because there's a lot of pressure on the economy and things will take longer than necessary. But you also have to not give up, and also have your benchmark, as in your baseline. It's easy to say, okay, I'll take the first thing that comes, but you also don't want to devalue your skills and capabilities, because it could be that much harder to ramp back up to where you should be.
Some amazing points, Aziz, and something I want to add to what Aziz just talks about. If you paid attention, that he mentioned that he had kept in touch with that person from Ernst & Young over the years, and that's actually the key to network, right? You do not expect that you come to one person and have a coffee chat and you get a job immediately after. It's a long-term relationship building. And you really need to treat the person on the other hand as a human being. Once in a while, check in, and do not just you connect the first time and disappear for a few years. And next time when you need that help, you come back again. So that would not position you very well, in front of the other person who you're seeking to help. And the other thing that I really had very some deep reflection is Aziz mentioned about the being introvert in Canada, right? Because North America culture is a very extrovert ideal society, which means kids who grew up here, they are educated and they're kind of prepared to show their skills and show their capabilities in a very confident way. Right, and being not everybody who grew up here or born here are extrovert. So a lot of times people who are introverted, they have to say, "Oh, I have to fake it until I make it." Right, but for people from other cultures, for example, people from my culture. More of an introvert ideal society means, if you are extrovert and sometimes you're considered you're showing off too much, we are asked to keep our head down and just do the good work. And then people would recognize you and you will get into a very good position. You don't have to spend the extra effort to polish your presentation skills and, show off yourself in front of a big audience, right? That sometimes is considered not a good approach in building your brand. So it's totally different concept. And we really need to, all of the immigrants, and especially coming from a different culture, right? Where, you feel very comfortable being introverted, and we really need to step out of the comfort zone. So we're going to switch the gear a little bit here because one thing that has been bothering me for a long time is immigrants can come and get the entry-level job, right? However, it's a truth that universally acknowledged that immigrants are extremely underpaid and undervalued, right, in the Canadian workplace. One of RBC's recent research, I believe it was published in 2019, that immigrants earn 10% less than people who are born here. And 30 years ago, it was 4% less. So actually the gap is much bigger now. So once you get a job, right, a lot of immigrants tend to, because of the pressure of supporting a family and settling down, a lot of them are taking a lower position job than when you from your home country. And how do we continuously challenge the current system, at the same time break the culture barrier and really advance our career to the next level? So that's going to be a very, very interesting and a very meaningful conversation. So I'm going to start with you, Aziz, this time in terms of really developing the career to the next level. And what are some of the culture barriers and some nuances that immigrants need to pay attention to really bring ourselves and our career to the next level?
Right, and that's a very, very good question and good area to discuss. And so a couple of things. The challenge or the issue of pay gap, pay difference, sometimes comes from the fact that as newcomers, a lot of us don't understand the concept of negotiation, or that the first offer is not always the best offer. Any person hiring is always going to look for ways to save money at the onset. So we might put out a salary and say, hey, this is what I'm offering you. And because, again, from the cultures that we come through or come from, right, we accept it at face value, right? We aren't taught to challenge our, in some cases, what we consider benefactors, right? I.e., this person is doing me a favor by hiring me, right? And again, as I mentioned, those pressures of we're new to the country, we want to settle down quickly, so we don't challenge. So therefore, our starting salary or starting point of earning is lower than our counterparts. So the key to closing that first is, for a lot of newcomers to, one, build skills and understanding around the concept of negotiation, particularly pay negotiation. And understanding, as I mentioned, like the first offer is not always the best offer. And when you get to the point of negotiation, being able to clearly articulate and communicate the value that you bring that is worth the higher pay that you might be requesting or countering for that offer. The other part is there's a lot of learning that as newcomers we always need to pick up once we arrive, right? Unless you're a newcomer that has had, let's say, global experience in a variety of different countries, including, let's say, the United States and the UK, where, those are like the US and the UK are probably countries that are similar to work environments in Canada, and you've learned how to navigate those systems. It can be a bit of a challenge to understand how to communicate your value, how to interview effectively, without, as Vivian, as you mentioned, coming off feeling like you're showing off, because in your own country, quote unquote, bragging about your skills or talking about your skills and achievements can be considered bragging from in the country that you come from. So those are things that you sort of have to overcome and get comfortable with, and describing and articulating what you have achieved in a way that the role or the hiring manager that you're applying for the role you're applying for can understand. And this does not, and when I say this doesn't mean that, I need to go and I need to question the English that I'm speaking. It's not about the English, right? It is about conveying a message about achievement that clearly shows how you are capable of doing the job, right? And I'll give an example. So let's say if I'm hiring for a role that where the criteria is, deep dive analysis on costs in order to identify opportunities for cost savings in my business, right? If I'm interviewing you or you're, and I ask, or you want to tell me how you are the right person for that job with that criteria, what I want to hear is, one, that you understand what deep dive analysis of costs mean, and you can give me real examples of how you have done that in your prior experience, and how you've identified cost savings with some specific numbers. So let's say if you're a newcomer to Canada, but you've spent time working in Ghana, for example, or in China, right? You can tell me that, I worked for HSBC or I worked for Zenith Bank, I'm just assuming that it's banking. And in that business, I was able to look at costs related to our retail banking business, right? And I use the word retail banking because you would have done your research to know that the comparable word for the type of banking that you would have done in your own area equates to retail banking in Canada, right? These are things that a lot of the times as a newcomer, we don't, we're not told immediately. And that's where we have a lot of challenges, because I can say, I actually worked in retail banking. I just didn't know that the term for that type of banking in Canada was retail banking. In Commonwealth countries or most places outside of North America, the word for revenue is turnover, right? But in Canada, turnover means, we're actually, hiring and firing people, right? Or our accounts receivable. So these are just the things that can hinder progress and showing value, right? In order for you to actually get the pay that you deserve or get hired for the role that you truly belong in. So you've got to spend time, with organizations like ACCESS, or other groups like CAUFP or whatever groups that exist, that focus on teaching you those skills that you need. And it may take some time. It may take 2 months, 3 months, depending on how quickly you can assimilate, or you can accelerate your knowledge or whatever's going on in your life. But keep in mind that these are the things that really set people apart. It's not about, oh, I speak with some funny accent, right? Therefore, they couldn't understand me, right? It's really about, did I convey the message? Did I know that it was retail banking versus, merchant banking, right? No one uses the term merchant banking in North America, but a merchant bank is a type of banking service that happens in a lot of African countries and a lot of European countries. But it equates to retail and commercial banking in Canada. And then I can say, oh, I was able to increase, I was able to increase cost savings by 25%. You translate your local currency into the dollar equivalent so that, your interviewer can understand magnitude or scale. So if you are in Japan and it's, I saved 100 million yen. What is 100 million yen in Canadian dollars, right? Put that on your resume. Translate all of the currencies so that whoever's looking at you can see value equivalent to the role that they're hiring. So I think those are a couple of my tips for how to deal with this particular issue.
Thanks, Aziz. Thanks, and I hope we can come back to this topic if we had time. I'm going to ask Llewellyn. So you joined RBC in 2019, last year, right? And it's been a year. So what are some of the, some of the learnings? Once you join our organization here, how do you bridge that culture difference? Which would allow you to continue in the Canadian organization? What some of the steps you have taken?
Okay, I mean, a lot of the things Aziz has said actually, apply to that point when you've gotten a job and you're trying to settle in and trying to deal with that integration culturally and, work-wise and all of that. And what I will add is that there's a reason why listening carries the most score in IELTS. And I've heard people say to me, as much as you want to ask questions to figure out a path, be at that place where you're comfortable enough asking questions. And to be honest, when you join a new firm, you have that newcomer pass for a while. So ask all the questions that you want to ask. No question is stupid. No question is silly. No question is naive. That newcomer pass, use it very well. So ask questions, but as much as you're asking questions, you also want to listen very actively. And I find that listening is a skill that can be a little underrated because not every communication is verbal. So you have to get to a place where you're constantly trying to also build that soft skill where you're listening to learn a bit more about the nuances that are not exactly spoken in regards to social engagement, maybe. I mean, there's no rule book really for social engagements of the time. So you have to be able to listen actively, observe your colleagues on your team, observe the people around you, and just try to start to learn the language in quotes. And something else that Aziz touched on that I'm in the process of also working out myself is a place of, self-promotion. I mean, he said negotiation, but then I would take it further and say self-promotion. And it's something that a lot of people, and me particularly being a woman, you hear a lot of times, you shouldn't be too forward, you shouldn't be too strong, you shouldn't be too confident, you shouldn't be too assertive. And if you grow up in a kind of patriarchal system, it's almost like a way of life. And in a place like Canada, it's the exact opposite. There is a fine, wonderful balance between being confident and assertive and arrogant, right? So there's a place where you should learn to promote yourself. And I think the best way that I like to try to advise people is that have a way to tell your story. And to tell your story, you have to remember it. And most of us have worked for a bit of time. We might have forgotten the success stories that we had. Remind yourself, take some time, sit down, and this will also help you at the interview stage. Take some time, sit down and recollect all of the successes that you've ever recorded at every organization that you've worked for. Remember them. This would help at the interview level. And then when you now take it a step further, after you get your job, you need to be able to remember and then tell your manager that story very, very accurately and succinctly to be able to get that promotion that you want, to be able to move ahead. And it's not like Vivian said, it's not about being, you're showing off. No, believe me, it's allowed. It's totally allowed. Everyone does it. My current manager said to me recently, Loveline, I wasn't getting promoted for a while, and he's Canadian, by the way, because I wasn't asking. And I thought, wow, are you serious? He said, yeah. He wasn't asking. And he was doing a great job, but you felt, oh, he's okay, so there's no need to move him up. So you have to learn that place where you're able to promote yourself, promote the skills that you have. Like Aziz said, use the words that would resonate with the people that you're interviewing with. And that's where the place of listening, observing, and doing some research as well will also help you to be able to tell your story and practice that story that you want to tell. Because sometimes it doesn't come very easy. You might forget, you might want to stutter, but practice will make perfect. So practice. I do mock interviews with people. I did a couple of mock interviews before I got my job at RBC, and that is very helpful, I can tell you. So practice, telling your story in a convincing manner. Practice, laying out your skills in a way that is understandable, where you're able to show that, I have relevant experience that I can translate to whatever role you're applying for. Practice, practice, practice. So I think that's all I can add to Aziz and answer that question.
Thanks, Lovelyn. And I think, that points exactly what Aziz mentioned in one of our last conversations there. As immigrants, we tend to put our heads down and we think as long as we do the hard work and we deliver amazing result, we will be promoted. But that is not the case. So, Aziz, do you have something to add to this point?
Yeah, no, it's very true, and Loveland mentioned, right? You have to promote yourself, right? You have to talk about your achievements. It can feel like extra work because comparing the process for the country that you came from, where it might have been just based on meritocracy, i.e., I've done the work, I've delivered on deliverables. Someone will identify and recognize that's been done, and then they'll promote me. It isn't always the case here, right? If people don't see the work that you're doing coming from you, right? You talking about it, it becomes more difficult to identify, especially when you're not like the only person that knows this role, right? It's different where it's like, oh, this guy or this girl is the key subject matter expert in this space, right? And you don't have, other people that you're competing with, that it's easy to identify you for promotion or to take on to other tasks. But when you're, in the same level with a whole bunch of other people, who are equally good, you have to do something to let people know that you, to make you stand out. And sometimes that isn't, that standing out isn't always about the job that you're doing, right? It can be what you're involved in outside of your core mandate. That could mean volunteering within the organization. So a lot of times, a lot of newcomers shy away from participating in things like committees or social functions or social groups within the work environment, because again, we are trained and we are culturalized that when you go to work, it's all about work, right? But here, those conversations where people get to know you and know about your personality happen outside of the boss, the manager employee relationship, right? Where you're just delivering, right? So that means, hey, like at RBC, prior to COVID, we had in finance, we had the CFO golf tournament, right? That happens every year. And, a lot of people would, most immigrants would say, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't know how to golf. What is this golfing thing, right? It's taking a whole day out of my work that I could be producing good deliverables. But if you happen to get paired on a team with a senior director in a space that you want to get into, spending a whole day with that person connecting over golf can make the difference between you remaining where you are or getting that promotion or moving to a new team. Those are the types of socializations that help you get ahead outside of, I delivered on my mandate. I saved the bank $500 million or $500 million is a lot. That will get noticed. Or, I completed my month-end reporting, right, on time or 2 days ahead of time, right? That's great, but there's almost an expectation that you'll deliver on your work. It's the other things, right? Oh, I helped my VP write a speech for or his speaker notes for a presentation that he was supposed to give to another group, right? I volunteered to do that because, I saw he had a need or she had a need, right? Things like that go a long way, and then you get recognized. Other aspects is some of the stuff that both Vivian and I do, right? The work that we do in our communities that ultimately find their way back into the ears of our employers, right? So a lot of the work that I did outside of CAUFP has helped my career internally at RBC because they've seen, the work that I do there. They've seen the leadership capabilities that I've shown, right? And sometimes that's what you also need to do, right? And it doesn't have to be being a president of an organization. It can be the volunteer work that you do with, let's say, the food bank or in your community association, right? That you then have the courage to talk about, again, back to what I was saying about sharing your personality. You talk about that internally so that, again, people get to know the complete version of you, not just the person that can deliver on or that does the work, that crunches numbers or files the paperwork or whatever it is that you do in your office.
Thanks, Aziz. Such amazing insights, and people who register for today's webinar, I have to say that you're in for a treat. I've hosted so many webinars, and I definitely feel that the two guests today, their insights and sharing can be very, very beneficial for you, not only in job search, but also many years to come when you're searching, looking to promote and grow your career in Canada. I know that we only have 1 minute or two left. Maybe we have the opportunity to answer 1 or 2 questions. I'll pass it back to Sonia.
Thank you, Vivian. Yes, maybe we can take up a question here. I know we're at the end of our session. All right, so this is a question from Lee Shan. He has not received an interview yet, but he wants, all right, so, maybe can you give some tips on how to stand out in an interview?
So, okay, so I would take a stab at it. How to stand out in an interview. A lot of times the newcomer, right, when you're preparing for interviews and there are tons of behavior interview questions and, you would prepare, you would ask, so what is the best answer? And what is the correct answer to that question? And I have to tell you, that is the approach that cannot lead you that cannot lead you to the right direction. Because if you think from the hiring manager and recruiter perspective, we invite 5 people to the interview. The goal is not to eliminate one person. The goal is to hire only one, right? So keep that in mind. Right, and you have to have a unique story about yourself, and to be able to provide that unique answer, you need to do some self-reflection. What makes you unique? What makes you stand out? As someone who's an immigrant, how does your global experience, the international experience, make you different than people who grew up here? Because obviously you don't have Canadian work experience, but how does your work experience outside of Canada help you bring that diverse perspective into the team and bring that out of the box innovative solution to help the team succeed in the future? So those are type of thinking that need to go through your mind when you're preparing interview.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And for someone that does hiring for on my side, yeah, it's the unique stories, the clear connection of your experience to what's being looked for, and also asking some interesting questions.
Yes.
So one of the questions that I always find is always key to ask whenever you're interviewing for a role is to ask the hiring manager, what pain points are they trying to solve currently? And the reason why that's a very good question is that compared to just looking at the job description, a lot of times the job descriptions are not the complete picture because there are limitations on space in terms of what they post. But one, the hiring manager can then delve into very specific challenges that are going on that they would like this role to solve, even though it's not on the job description. And when you hear that, it's easier for you to then, dig into your own experiences and say, oh, where have I done this before? Or how would I approach this, even if you've never done it before? They could tell you a challenge like, oh, I can't figure out how to deliver this type of reporting to our executives. And then you can hopefully quickly think about a way to address that. Because I think what a hiring manager will go away with is, you've just added value to my life. You've just helped me solve a problem, or you have the idea to help me solve a particular problem. I will remember that versus someone else that's just asking basic questions. So that's a tip that I would give to everyone.
Yeah, I definitely echo that. Asking questions.
Can I quickly jump in, Vivian, with one tip that I find I like to share? Like Vivian and Aziz have said, you have to try and find a way to be memorable. You want them to remember you. That's the goal. Because if you come in and then you leave and they can't remember what you said, they can't remember what you said. You didn't show up. I like to say, when you come in, start with a punch, right? Even sometimes, put yourself in their shoes. They seem like they're interviewing like maybe 5-10 people in a day. And, it's paper. We almost all look the same to them. You have to find a way to carve that niche to make yourself stand out. So start with I like to start with a summary of my accomplishments. When I get the question, tell us about yourself, which almost everyone asks, I won't just start reading out my resume. I'll start with, oh yes, I will tell about myself, but let me give you a summary of my top 3 accomplishments in my 12-year career. And I will start with that. And I will give you the numbers. It will be numeric, it will be quantitative, qualitative. From the get-go, you have caught their attention. So I'd say start with a punch and then leave with a punch, like Aziz said, ask a question that they will be bound to remember you for. So start with a memorable, entrance, and then also leave with a memorable exit as well.
Thank you. Both amazing points. And I think we're at the time. I want to respect our guests' time as well as our participants' time. I will pass it back to Sonia to add a few last words.
Thank you so much, Vivian and everyone else at RBC. I know we're over time here. I'll quickly just go through what's to expect next coming up. Our next webinar coming up is on Wednesday, November 11th, working on your LinkedIn profile. And I'm just going to quickly go over some next slides. Just main points that all of our programs are available online, and you can call one of your closest ACCESS location to get started with your job search. Check out our calendar of events for future webinars, and feel free to join our Talk English Cafe that's held almost every day, and you can practice your English conversation skills. If you are on your way to Canada, you have your COPR and you're going to be landing soon, email cec@accessemployment.ca to find out if you are eligible for our online program. And please do fill out the survey at the end of the webinar. Follow us on our social media. We are very active on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. A very big thank you to Lovelyn, Aziz, and thank you, Vivian. I hope everyone has a great week ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you.